Hey, welcome to the podcast at In Goal Radio, the podcast. Darren Millard along with Kevin Woodley. David Hutchison is on assignment this week, and we have a great one for you. Coming up today, we'll spend some time at the Hockey Shop over at thehockeyshop.com, source for sports Surrey, and chat about some demo equipment that is for sale. Cam's got a couple of cool setups for us. And on the Sense Arena feature interview, the life adventures of playing in the National Hockey League, carving your way around professional hockey with Troy Grosenick, who goes from Southern California to Northern Alberta and back. And boy, oh boy, along with the just going on the ice and doing your thing and doing your job, the idea of traveling through weather in winter, in the middle of winter, is, it's dicey at times, and Troy is gracious enough and honest enough to walk us all the way through it. Let's catch up with Woody. How are you doing over there as we pass the 10-game mark of the National Hockey League season for everybody?
I'm trying to figure it out, Darren. We're starting to get enough sample size that we can start to judge some of these performances, and yet it's all over the map watching goalies. Like, I mean, obviously we watch games and highlights and great saves and all those moments. That's what we're trying to drill down on, who's using what technique. And by the way, Troy Grosenick is great talking about different techniques and adapting them. But then you look at the numbers, and I'm like, my God, Frederik Andersen, for example, leads the league in wins now after picking up his 9th last night against Montreal. He's barely rocking a 900. And then you got guys playing in other divisions. Like, how are we comparing these guys this year, Darren? I can't. I have Clearsight Analytics. Thank God for Stephen Valiquette giving me a peek under the hood, because you can actually weight shot quality. But in a year where teams aren't ever going to play each other, in a year where the North Division goalies are looking at, Carey Price faced Martyrs and Matthews last night. Tonight, the Canadians played McDavid and Draisaitl, and they're doing it 10 times a year. The top 8 or 9 goal scorers in the National Hockey League are all from the North Division. Half the teams don't. Defense is just merely a suggestion, and you've got all these elite top-end snipers. I don't know how we're going to weight performances among goaltenders this year.
So do you think that the Canadian goaltenders will get a bump because they're playing all the top scorers, or do you think it will hurt the Canadian goaltenders when it comes to something like the Vezina Trophy?
Oh, it's going to hurt them for sure. Like, I mean, in some ways, the voters, and let's be honest, like, this is GMs on this one, and there's been times where we've been openly critical because they overvalue wins and raw save percentage numbers. So maybe wins will matter. Like, maybe they'll look like at Freddie Andersen and say, well, yeah, he's got a 905, but look what he's playing behind him. Maybe they will.
And look what he's playing against. Like that.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, because they've been a little better defensively as a team, but maybe they'll look at they'll use their access, the teams that have it, to some of these advanced numbers and try and actually weight shot quality and having to face some of these guys every night. Maybe they will. My hunch is they won't. You're not winning the Vezina Trophy with a 905, not when you got guys around the league posting a 930. And to be honest, the way Andrei Vasilevsky has started this year, it's probably a moot point. Like, folks, if you're betting futures, I know the odds he'll probably have the lowest odds. But I'd still put my money, like, right now,
still
on
win.
Vasilevsky. It's yeah, exactly. It's slam dunk time, right? Like, anything can happen and all but like, he's slam dunk right now. Like, he's rocking a great save percentage. He's winning every time he's out there. They got some lesser lights in their division, in these reshaped divisions that they're just pounding on. Like, it's going to be hard. I really don't have the answer in terms of how, like, Connor Hellebuck, to repeat, he's actually having a good year. There's 2 goalies in the North Division in the top 25 of the NHL in save percentage. And 5 of the top 8 point getters are from the North. And like I said, top 8 or maybe 9 now with Josh Anderson scoring last night. Like, literally the top 9 goal scorers in the NHL are all from the North. So,
but do you think managers look that deep into it?
I don't, which is why I think they're in trouble. Like, I think I think it's going to be tough for a guy from the North to win the Vezina, especially if there's guys in other divisions posting 930s and GMs aren't looking at relative save percentage.
Yeah, and how much is a manager from one division really watching the other 3? I know that they do. But I'm talking about goaltending specific.
Honestly, they're probably like all of us. Like, I think I feel and maybe the fact that I'm making this argument for North Division goaltenders reiterates it, but I feel like you're almost in a bubble. Yes, I watch
agree.
other games, and I think I watch the Golden Knights. I love how Flowers playing right now. I'm trying to watch all these things. But with so many games, just even covering the local team, like the Canucks played 16 games in 27 nights. These past 2 days, like right now, this is game day for them heading, Jacob Markstrom's return to Vancouver. There's another guy that could be in that conversation. But Jacob Markstrom's return to Vancouver, we're coming off of 2 days off for the Canucks. They had Tuesday and Wednesday off. Like they practiced, but they didn't play a game.
Vacation.
First time all season where they have had 2 days between games. And we're more than a month into the schedule. So just because the day job means covering that and watching that, it's hard to keep up with anything else. And my sense is others around the league are finding the same thing. It's hard to look outside their own little or their own division.
And that's why when things start to go sideways a little bit, if you're on a schedule like that, it's really hard for a coach or a goaltender or a player to turn it around because you're just going out. You don't have that little break to step away. What about this? When you talk about the Vezina Trophy winner and potentially the managers trying to keep up with things, for a 1 year only, we have 4 finalists instead of 3, like 1 nominee from each division, and then we can kind of prop up the numbers and give the managers, whether it's the National Hockey League does it or somebody like InGoal does it, gives the managers a little bit of a foundation to evaluate head to head, just for 1 year only.
I love the idea, and I love the idea of using numbers, create some of these comparisons. Use a Clearsight Analytics and Stephen Valiquette's company. Like to me, they weigh more factors to determine shot quality than anyone else out there. So present that case. What is, there are intangibles you can't account for, but we can account for a lot of things. So let's have a better comparison of the top 4 before we cast our vote just based on raw numbers. And listen, there are a lot of GMs, you got to give them credit. Not only will they do their homework, but some of them that maybe will admit that there is levels to this homework that they're unprepared to do. They're not getting an A on this project. They'll create a group project. They'll talk to their goalie coaches. They'll ask them for opinions, and not just opinions based on, hey, what do you think? You watch goalies, but opinions based on, you guys have access to these numbers. You use these numbers. Can we come up with a better way of looking at it? But even there, I think that's harder this year because, of course, a goalie coach is breaking down film of goalies from other. When in a regular season, they have to play. Everybody comes through Vancouver. Everybody has a game here. They do their work on both goalies. They do their preparation. They watch video. They create a pre-scout. They don't have to this year. Like, you're not wasting your time on the Vancouver Canucks, Braden Holtby, and Thatcher Demko if you're playing in the States right now, because you don't have to worry about them unless you make it to, conference final level. So why would you waste that time? Whereas every other year, all these goalie coaches would have that information and have done their homework. To me, you're right. Like pick one of each. Like there's probably going to be a few where you could have 2 candidates in a division, but pick one of each and then actually give them time to drill down and do their homework and figure out who's the best. I like it. Great idea.
For 2021, 4 Vezina finalists, and we provide support and statistical evidence for their performances presented by InGoal magazine as propped up by the evidence of Clearsight Analytics. That's my plan. That's my plan. The Hockey Shop, thehockeyshop.com, source for Sports Surrey. Cam's got a lot going on over there.
Yeah, we talked over the past couple of weeks about some of the sale items. We're into the new stuff. We've had it on the ice with the Hockey Shop. Your Bauer Hyperlight, really exciting line this year. CCM eFlux 5, some great innovations there. We've taken a deep dive on that stuff already. We're preparing for that launch at the end of the month. But in the meantime, you can get savings on all their past models that they still have around. Need to sort of clear out the old to make way for the new. And let's be honest, the old is good stuff too. This is top of the line pro end gear, some of it up to 40-50% off. Anything that's not on sale, make sure you use the InGoal 20 discount to get yourself a deal anyways. Sticks, things like that. We talked about the Warrior V1 stick line. Still a lot of those left and heavily discounted as they make room for next year's model. So a lot of really good product on really good deals. And coming up this Friday, February 12th, the annual demo sale.
Yes.
Now, COVID has changed things a little bit for us. You haven't been able to take the gear out like you would in the past, and that's what makes the hockey shop great. They actually have loaner sets where you can sign out a gear, like not just get into the shop, put it on your leg, pull a woody, grab all the gloves off the wall and flap them around, see what closes and feels good. You can actually take it out on the ice and play. They actually purchase a demo fleet each and every year. A little tougher this year with regulations and COVID and potential for germs, but they still have a lot of sets that were ordered for that purpose from last year that are now going to be on sale this Friday, February 12th. You can check them out in store if you happen to be from the Lower Mainland, or for sure online at thehockeyshop.com. And we're going to actually now chat with Cam about a couple of those special sets because they got some NHL goalie names on them, and one of them is really unique.
Here is Cam and Woody. The demo sales coming up at Source for Sports Surrey, The Hockey Shop, thehockeyshop.com.
Welcome back to the Hockey Shop, Source for Sports, where we're in goalie utopia with Cam Matwiv, who suddenly thinks he's Braden Holtby. And you can be too, because it's time for the annual demo sale at the Hockey Shop and thehockeyshop.com. And headlining a deep list of products this year, a set of CCM eFlex 4 made for Braden Holtby. Cam, walk us through the Holtby set, what makes it unique, and then some of the other specials that you've got on this week, some of the other gear that'll be available, including a set of Bauer's pads for Frederik Andersen.
Yes, we got quite a few highlights for our demo sale this year. What you called up first, the CCM eFlex 4 set that was made for Holtby when he was playing for the Capitals. This set featured 580 glove, which he uses in his angle. Quite an extensive mod list to the pads, one of which especially is worth calling out the toe cap in particular that you've seen on his pads for a number of years. Tight fit leg channel, but still featuring the leather straps. Sorry, super tight fit leg channel in particular. Tight fit knee. 34+2 is his size. One of the other notes, even with the blocker that doesn't get talked about too much, he's removed the backhand pad on the blocker itself, so it creates a little bit more of a looser fit. Good freedom of motion in it. Something pretty unique. Your chance to own an NHL Pro quality set.
And that toe cap, we've seen it over the years, Cam. It is quite unique to still have that bridge, to actually have the gap over top of the skate. And basically what it does, if you've seen in play, seen close-ups of those pads, is it creates a super flexible boot that almost melts around the top of the toe of the skate.
Very reminiscent of some older Vaughn pads that you see.
All right, moving on. Let's quickly walk us through the Frederik Andersen Bauer set that you've got here, and then let's highlight some of the other ones that are available.
All right, another very, very unique custom pad. This pad itself, 1S, 2S chassis, featuring still the 1S style strapping, 1S style calf plate that's offset and set into the pad a little bit more. Screwed on toe bridge, which again, something you don't normally see, especially for Bauer pads. And a custom rotation strap that you don't see something at retail normally either. So the pad itself, very quite custom, size large, pretty flexible and stiff all at the same time. Good overall feel, something definitely very unique. And again, your chance to be yours.
What else we got? Because these are the highlight. These are the ones that have NHL names on them, but I was in the back room. I saw how deep this inventory runs. What other items can people find at thehockeyshop.com during the demo sale?
Very lightly used pair of V8 Pro Carbons, 34+2, beautiful looking set. A few sets of CCM eFlex pads in our black and red, or our own personal demo fleet. We've got a few sticks as well, a couple chest plates that'll be on for sale, lots of gloves, a couple dirt cheap Brian's pads that have been left over for a little while. One set that's completely unused, I think it's going for under $300 for a full set. Beyond that, I think you're going to have to stay tuned and check it out on this Friday, the 12th, February 12th. We were going to go live up on the website. You'll be able to check out there. You'll be able to see everything and make your purchases online. It'll be something that's available in store as well. But however, we would like you to check it out online first.
Hockeyshop.com. And if they have any questions, like for example, particulars about the Braden Holtby pads, more information, where can they find you, Cam?
They can find me at 604-589-8299. And those international listeners, including the ones in the States, 1-800 877-567-7790. I don't need your help today, Hutch.
Or Siri. She was chirping you good last week. I couldn't believe it. I've never heard an Apple product that upset.
Quite rude.
Cam, thank you very much for walking us through the demo sale. Everyone else, make sure you check it out. Like he said, this Friday, February 12th, everything goes live. Tons of options, tons of great savings here at the Hockey Shop, source for sports, and thehockeyshop.com.
Thanks, Kev.
It'd be so cool to be able to skate onto the ice with Holtby on the side of your pads. Like, that's just really neat thing.
Well, and toe caps, like Darren, I had to actually, do a second take on that read because I couldn't remember what they were called. Like who has toe caps anymore? But Braden loves the way that sort of that cutout section and just a slab of leather over top of it. Just that pad just melts over the top of his skate, right? So it's a very unique setup. The super tight leg channel, folks, make sure, if you just listen to that and you're trying to picture it, remember, we'll have the simulcast up at ingoalmag.com on the episode page. We'll have the YouTube embedded, or you can go to our YouTube page or check out our IGTV and you'll see video. Check out InGoal Premium as well. I think we're going to post a quick story there as well, just where you can actually see just how unique this setup is. Like that super tight leg channel in there, it's, I guess the best equivalent I can think of for people is like an old school Vaughn V2. Like it really is an inside leg channel that is just wrapped right around the calf. And that's Braden's got a little old school in him. He likes to feel that softer pad up against his leg. How does it affect the rotation? Amazingly, if you watch him play, like I've never seen rotation be an issue for Braden. So, I think the one thing is you have that connection to that really tight inside leg channel. And if you've ever met Braden off the ice, like Braden is, what's the best description? He's farm boy thick. Like he's a guy that, you know what I mean? Like he's a really big, like muscular, strong guy. Those aren't chicken legs that are squeezing into those tight calf wraps, but they're not like, there's no Velcro around that calf wrap to sort of like suck you in and hold you in, right? There's still some freedom of movement within it. So you create that connection without locking it. And I think that still allows the pad. There's only a couple of guys that use it. Obviously, Semyon Varlamov with the Islanders has switched over to True, but still would be built by Lefebvre. Those were the two guys that I knew of that were using that super tight leg channel. I'll tell you one quick story. Jacob Markstrom, when he first arrived in Vancouver from Florida, had a super tight leg channel from CCM in his pads. And I remember asking him, because all his straps were done up super loose. And I'm like, dude, you're like, there's 3 guys in the league that use this. Why are you using it? And he didn't know. He's like, that's just how they sent it. Yeah. So needless to say, as he started, Ian Clark sort of educated him here in Vancouver about how your gear works a little bit more and how to make it work for you. The super tight is gone from Jacob Markstrom's setup.
We have our feature interview with Troy Grosenick coming up, brought to you by Sensorina. But first, talking about the working on the visual part of the game. We've talked a lot about, at times, the mental part of the game. We had an example of both coming into play this week in the National Hockey League with Tuukka Rask actually going to the bench late in a game against the New York Rangers for the extra attacker. And he got all the way to the bench. The problem was the game was tied. And he admitted that he blanked. He thought they were down a goal in that. And there was a couple of reviews in that game that took a long time. Like it was a strange third period. But the bench just waving him back, like, what are you doing here? Go. And I went back and watched it again, and he was signaling to the bench, wondering why they weren't paying attention to him, wondering when he was going to be called to the bench. I know it's happened before, but boy, it's funny when it does happen.
And you know what? And it just goes to show you, like, I mean, obviously things didn't go poorly for them, but just the way he was able to laugh at all, like it just, it was a perfect Tuukka moment because he wasn't fazed by it at all. Like not rattled. Matter of fact, that was a stolen win for the Bruins last night against the Rangers. Like he was good as he always is. Blows me away. There are Tuukka Rask haters in Boston because this guy, when he does hang them up, is going straight into the freaking Hall of Fame. Like he's that good. His numbers and just his ability to sort of, he laughed it off after. And we've all had those moments at work where I do it every once in a while where, you make the same mistake over, whether it might even be a name spelling, which is a cardinal sin in my industry as a writer, but you do it once, you see it, and it looks right to you, and it just So at some point in that game, it was 2-1 to him, and there was nothing that clicked that it wasn't. And so that was the mindset. And we've all done it in our jobs. We just don't all play in front of a live national television audience. So I just thought the way he handled it was great.
And this week, Connor Hellebuck had the strange goal against the Calgary Flames go in. The Tuukka Rask situation. It's humbling to watch these guys at the top of the game. Like, it happens to all of us.
Right. And their ability to, on that stage, again, to just sort of absorb it, accept it, and move on is probably one of the reasons. Hey, and this is one thing Troy talks about, the work ethic of Jonathan Quick, and, that he shouldn't have been surprised by it, because the guys that get to that level all have that in common. He's been 9 years in the league, and he sees it so many times with all the top guys. And, so there are certain things that are just true of all these guys. The ability to move on from those moments is definitely one of them.
It's all part of the journey, which Troy Grosenick takes us on in the Sense Arena feature interview. You want to set this up for us?
Well, before we get to the interview, we got to talk about something special we got coming up with Sense Arena as well, because the reason Hutch is on special assignment this morning, and we have absolutely buried him in work on this one, he's preparing for a webinar. Remember those? We used to do those in goal in person. They're back. We're going to have one this Sunday. The time is still a little to be determined, in part because we've got a pro goaltender joining us for this webinar. And they had a practice. What was supposed to be a day off is now a practice day. World of COVID, things change fast. So we're shifting the time. Make sure you check your email. Check out all the In-Goal social media channels. Check out In-Goal Premium for a firm time, but it will be this Sunday. And yes, we realize that is Valentine's Day. So make sure you get mom or your better half breakfast in bed early. We're probably going to be, late morning to like noon, depending on your time zone, maybe a little early afternoon in some places. And we are going to walk you through with video the entire sort of how this works. We've got Bob Tativa from Sense Arena. We've had a lot of questions about Sense Arena. We've had a lot of people that just buy in and we get the feedback. They're like, wow, the best purchase I've ever made. Like, can't believe what a difference this makes. As Hutch's son, Matty, said, it's a cheat code. So a lot of positive feedback on the product right up to pro level. But there's still some people that, maybe don't understand all the things it does. Hutch talked last week about, the cognitive training tools that are built in. People have subscriptions to other services that are all about, training the eyes, training the brain. Well, those things are all part of Sense Arena as well. So we're going to have Bob on. We're going to have a pro goalie on. We're going to have Hutch with a ton of video he's preparing right now to actually, as best we can, because nothing is as good as putting on that headset and feeling like you're there. It's absurd how real it feels. But as best we can, we're going to take you into the environment and show you all the different features in a 1-hour webinar. So if anybody has any questions still about it, now is the time to sort of check it out. And, special little tease, I talked about it last week. There's going to be a heck of a special as well surrounding this for our in-goal audience in terms of getting a discount if you decide after seeing all these features that now's the time you want in on Sense Arena.
So we've talked about it a lot. You've probably witnessed a few of the clips on social media and been able to see what exactly happens. And you've been to the website for Sense Arena and you watched some of that. But on Sunday, you're going to get a real deep dive into exactly what this product gives you from a virtual reality point of view.
Yeah, and you're going to get to ask questions too. So, if you've got some questions about, how this works, how that works, like I said, we'll have Bob Tativa, we'll have Hutch, we'll have a pro goaltender who's become an avid user of it there to sort of walk you through it, answer your questions. And of course, hey, when we got a pro goaltender on, it means there'll be an opportunity for a little Q&A session. If there's some other questions you've got outside of Sense Arena, you'll be able to run those by them as well.
Outstanding. Looking through your eyes in the virtual reality world. In our feature interview brought to you by Sense Arena, we will examine the world through the eyes of Troy Grosenick, who has certainly saw a lot of it recently.
Okay, so the last time we talked to Troy Grosenick on the In-Goal Radio podcast, he recently signed with the Los Angeles Kings. We were in the offseason, the strangest of off-seasons. He was sharing stories about, going to the rink and getting changed in the parking lot with a bunch of NHLers like they were Pee-wee kids again. It was great. Here we are a few months later, and he's been to camp with the Kings. Then he's been to Edmonton, claimed off waivers by the Oilers, and now he's back with the Kings. But that journey, Troy, like there's so much to catch up on. Let's start with, before we get to the adventures of waiver world and of driving and of seeing a lot of the countryside. Camp. What was the first camp with the Kings like? Billy Ranford, a chance to meet him and work with him. What's at least that part been like to date?
It was great. Like, just starting to establish. I mean, I'd been able to be on some like Zoom meeting calls with the kind of like Kings like goalie department and some of the young prospects over the summer, which was great, just to kind of get names to faces and just to be able to talk about goaltending stuff within the organization was awesome. And then obviously, physically being here and being able to work on some of the things that we talked about, and a few other things, like being able to get on the ice with Billy and Matt, and the other goalies here, Quickie and Cal and Matty V and Iggy. So it was awesome just to like have that feel of like the goalie union back together, in not just on Zoom, but physically together. And it was a lot of fun just to be able to get out there and work on some things. And, Billy like had a few things for me to work on, and a few new things that, some post play things and behind the net play things that were new to me, and always wanted to be kind of learning and growing as a goalie. Like, it was just cool to be able to try to get that extra tool in the toolbox. And so the few weeks that I was here during camp, a lot of it was focused on that. And it was just being able to be on the ice with a guy like Jonathan Quick, who as an American goalie, like and a college route goalie, Quickie's kind of one of the best to ever do it. So he was a guy that, I mean, when he broke into the league, I was a little bit older, I would say, like in my development. I don't know the exact years, but it seems like, it would have been like when I was in junior college when Quickie was kind of coming into the league and then winning cups. But obviously that time frame is when it really clicked into me, like playing pro hockey was a possibility. And you look at the guys that kind of took the same route as you. So Quickie is obviously one of the most successful to do it. So just being on the ice with a guy like that, that kind of went through the same steps that you did through your pro career. I mean, that was just kind of even as a pro goalie, like that was a little bit of a pinch yourself moment too.
I was going to say, I mean, and the other guy there, Cal Peterson, who same path, right? NCAA and into pros, and, having a hell of a start to his young career as well. Did you guys talk at all about that? Like, I mean, we've never talked about sort of the rise of USA hockey from a goaltending department. We had Spencer Knight and Dustin Wolf on after they won a gold medal. Like, how much pride do you take in seeing the growth of the goaltending position in America over, during the course of your career?
Yeah, I guess I never really thought a ton about it, but it's definitely something cool, because I think, like, in just trying to like think back, I don't know if I've ever had an American as a goalie partner in my pro career, like unless just for like a couple games, like Parker Gahagan for a few games in San Jose. But yeah, like thinking back on it like that, like it's it's pretty cool. And like I said, like for me, like obviously we're all American, Quickie, Cal and I, but like the thing that it was the college route that drew me to watching guys like Quickie, and like growing up in Wisconsin, like watching Brian Elliott, guys like that were always guys that I kind of followed. Even though Els is Canadian, but I think, right? Yeah, he's not American.
He's got that moose on the mask. I'm pretty sure that comes from there's a if your moose emblem is tied to somebody you know who does moose calls, that's like one of those you're a redneck. You're a Canadian if.
Yeah, either that or you're from way up there in Minnesota or something like that.
True.
But yeah, no, I like definitely kind of like the guys that played at Wisconsin and you know, all growing up, like Cujo, Mike Richter, those types of guys were guys that I always, kept an eye on just because I remembered the names from Wisconsin. And then obviously getting in more into hockey is always kind of like what pro guys played college. And so it's kind of you can look for just similarities in your game and your path and your story. And, that kind of makes it cool. Like Cal's a little bit younger than me. And so I've known Cal a little bit. We skate once in a while. We kind of have a mutual group of guys that we skate with in the summer, and sometimes our skates overlap. So I knew Cal a little bit before I even signed here. But yeah, just like Quickie, being a guy that had, guys won 2 cups, like and he played college hockey. I mean, at UMass, which isn't that far from Union. And, it was kind of cool just to see how he goes about his daily things, and just to be able to bounce a few ideas off of him and just see how he kind of thinks about different situations.
Well, it's funny because you mentioned, just to tie it quickly back to the American and coming through the college route, even Matt Millar, the goalie coach for you guys in the development side, like same thing, right? He's from California native, El Segundo, and played college hockey up, I believe, in Minnesota area. So
I know he played at Bethel. Did he coach at Bethel? He coached at Bethel for a while too.
He played at Dakota College at Bottineau, which and then University of Minnesota Crookston, and then Bethel University for 2 years, and then, like you said, went into coaching.
Yeah. So Bethel. I know Bethel. Actually, one of my best friends growing up went to Bethel, played at Bethel for a couple years. I think he might have just missed Maddie, but Bethel's a place. It's 30, 40 minutes from where I live now. So
small world.
It is a small world.
Now, Quickie, you get on the ice with them. You talked a bit there about, new tools in the toolbox with Billy Ramford and some post-play stuff. Jonathan's a guy who, at least in terms of popularizing things like reverse VH in the NHL, like not only was he winning a cup, the first of 2 in 2012, but that was sort of the first guy that at least brought it into the mainstream in the NHL. It existed elsewhere before. People were trying it and using it, but that cup run sort of cemented it as, I remember other goalie coaches around the NHL at that point saying, I need to learn this. So you get on the ice with him. What kind of things are you learning from him? Anything surprise you about the way he handles things? Don't have to be giving away technical tips, but just even from a mindset, the way he handles his business.
Yeah. He works his butt off. Like, first of all, I think that's being around pro hockey as long as I've been, that's not it's not a shocker at all. But, you see a guy who, he's never, Billy could have tapped me on the pads and said, okay, go in, for the next rep, take him out. But if that last puck go in, there's no way Quickie's coming out. He's staying in until he gets the stop, and just the work ethic, even as a pro, still kind of it takes you hey, this guy, he's earned everything he's gotten. That's kind of the biggest takeaway, I think, with Quickie, for me, without getting into too many technical things. There's obviously Quickie plays a way that not a lot of other people can, is the best way to describe it to me. But he also plays the way that's best suited to him. So it's the old thing. Like, there's no one way to do it, and Quickie's way is going to be different than my way, and my way is going to be different than Cal's way. But there's still ideas, maybe that you kind of come up with on your own, or just from working on with different coaches and stuff that you might not have been exposed to. So being able to bounce those ideas off of each other, I think, is huge. And like I said, like, some of the post play stuff and behind the net play stuff is stuff that was never, what's the best way to put it? It's similar to things that I have been exposed to before, but it's not the same. And just being able to talk through the reasoning of doing certain things behind the net without giving too much away in certain situations, and the positives and negatives of doing it. Almost realizing the negatives of doing it is almost more important, because it allows you to realize what areas might be exposed when something goes a little off, and that can be in the back of your mind, and just know, like, I've got to cover that quickly if something goes wrong.
This is goaltending in a nutshell, right? Like, everything you do, there's a yin and a yang, there's a give and a take, there's a sliding scale, whether it's technical to read and react. Like, everybody exists in every aspect at a different point along the sliding scales there. And it's interesting. I never thought of it in terms of knowing what it is you're giving up in order to get something that you value in a certain technique or a certain tactic is a big part of the game. And it sounds like you've got a pretty collaborative environment there through training camp and before the season started with your coaches and with the goalies. Like, this sounds like goalie heaven.
Yeah, for sure. It actually, like, honestly, a lot of it reminded me of Net 360 and just being able to talk through these things. And obviously, like, I'm the new guy coming in, so I'm taking in a lot of the information, and I'm able to bounce questions like, this part doesn't quite make sense to me. Like, can we talk through this part and like make some sense out of it for me? And like, that's where, like, the collaboration really, really kind of takes hold. Right. And like, okay, yeah, that is a negative of, looking over a certain shoulder or whatever it may be, but it's something that we realize, and that when, if a pass out happens when you decide to turn, then you also know what you're taking away and what you have to potentially steal instead. And I mean, I think that basically the thought process is that you have your eyes on the puck as long as possible and as quick as possible. And at the end of the day, I think for a goalie, it's good to have your eyes on the puck.
Yeah, it seems like a pretty good idea. How much have you had a chance? You mentioned Matty Villalta. I'm not sure if Jacob Ingham was there or on his way back when you were in camp, but how much do you look at that role as a guy who's in his 9th season, who has seen, a lot of these things? Like you said, Quick's work ethic might surprise a kid, but you weren't surprised, because that's what the best tend to do is work really hard. Like, how do you view that mentorship role with those guys? How's those relationships started, and how do you sort of find that balance between managing your own game but also recognizing that, part of the gig is to help these kids?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't, it's, to me, it's like, it's a pretty simple, like, thing. Like, they're guys on your team that you're trying to help, like, right? Like, and I'm not necessarily gonna, go out of my way to fix them. Like, that's not my job. But if they have questions for me, like, I'm more than willing to talk to them. Both of them are awesome guys. Like, I got to spend time with both of them. Super nice kids, and they both, like, came to me with questions. And I mean, the way I view it is, like, I'm just going to answer the questions as openly and honestly as possible. And it's funny because, like, each of them had different questions. Like, Maddie would see me doing a stretch and he's like, "Hey, what are you really getting at there?" Like, he's like, I'm looking at you doing this stretch and I like can't quite figure out what it is. So I like explained to him what I was doing. I was like, like I move my foot a little bit this way and I get a little bit deeper into like this joint or whatever it may be. And with Jacob, a lot of it was, more like technical or, I guess the best way. So Jacob and I don't want to, I'm not necessarily the most technically sound goalie out there whatsoever, but, Jacob's like pretty technically sound. It's not going to like make the toe up skate safe. And I actually mentioned this to Billy, was like Matty V, Cal, and Jonathan Quick are all making like toe up glove saves. And I'm just like, what's going on here? Like, I haven't done that since like Pee Wee. And he's like, what? It's just something like those guys do, they're comfortable with. And like, I was like, what happened to me? Like a week into camp, like all of a sudden, like a shot went glove side and I went toe up glove save. And I was like, I haven't done that in 15 years, I bet. And just like watching these guys do it, it just whipped into my game from somewhere. But like Jacob and I would talk about stuff like that. It's like, I don't know how these guys do it, but like the athletic ability to do it consistently and make saves doing it that way. They're pretty elite at doing it. But it was just funny to me that it like out of nowhere just crept into my game just from watching these guys making these incredible toe up glove saves all the time.
Goaltending osmosis. Do you have to be careful sometimes? And have there been points at your career where, like you said, like it does I think I want to make sure I credit the right person for this term. Justin Goldman from the Goalie Guild, I think he once called it shadowing. I think that's the right term, and I apologize. I'll have to hit him up and ask him if I got that wrong. But just that, or mirroring, like just the idea that when you watch your partner do something a certain way so often that, yeah, hey, next thing you know, I'm doing that too. And I'm wondering if there's any points in your career where you've like had that happen and thought, yeah, like that's okay, that's coming into my game, but maybe that's not me. Like you have to be careful sometimes with it.
Right.
Like toe up glove save is fine every time, but
yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. Is you have to be careful with it, right? It's like kind of what we went back to is like collaboration is a good thing, and like mirroring something good about a guy's game can be a good thing. It can be something that you bring into your game that you end up really liking and really having success with. But at the same time, you have to be able to realize that just because it works for one guy doesn't mean it's going to work for you. Like, I mean, like being up in Edmonton, like Mikko's doing the double post seal. Like, I can't do that. I'm not big enough to do that. Like, so that's something that, first of all, I don't know if my legs work well enough to be able to mirror it, but it's something that you are cognizant of, right? Like I said, like I made this one toe up glove save out of nowhere, and I immediately realized, I was like, where did that come from? It's like, well, you've been seeing these guys make these 6 saves all the time. You wanted to mix one in on your own.
Well, plus, you gotta show Billy the old school every once in a while, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. I love mixing in like a couple old school saves, but and I think it's something that it does once in a while come out, like in a game. Like once in a while, I'll just stand and like on a low angle play, just stand there and put my pads together. And I think there's an element of unpredictability that helps you if you're able to be confident in your read and in the save selection itself. And that's where we get at with more tools in the toolbox doesn't hurt. And you just got to make sure that toolbox is big enough to fit all of them in.
It's that fine line, right? Like if you're standing on the post with both pads together, first of all, I know Nabby, your former coach in San Jose, would be really proud. I also know Devin Dubnyk would be happy to see that, because funny, we just did a pro reads with him. And what did we start with? We started with like flying poke checks. And as I was cutting the video for it, there were a number of saves where he just did the same thing, like just both pads up. And I guess it's that fine line between unpredictability seems to be increasingly important because shooters are always looking for one particular thing. So if somebody's coming down the wing looking high shoulder and RV, expecting to be an RVH, and they just happen to throw it right into you standing there, boy, that looks easy. But do it often enough, and they're going to throw one in your feet.
That's the one. It's the RVH and up over your ear on that short side. That's the one I always bring up, and because it's a play that the RVH is really good at a lot of things. Unfortunately, like, that is the weak spot of the RVH, right? And shooters are smart. They've learned that, right? So being able to, I see it all the time, honestly, in summer skates more so than anything, is like, I'll mix in just a VH when a guy's kind of coming down from a short angle, but above the goal line, just mix in a normal VH, especially on the glove side. And you can just sit there and you can see the guy. You can see the guy being like, I don't have what I thought I had. What am I going to do now? And 10 times out, well, shouldn't say 10 times out of 10, but a lot of times they end up just shooting it where they thought they were going to have space, and it just ends up in your webbing. And you're like, that was an easy save. Thanks, bud.
Nice. Again, unpredictability. We've heard this team, Robin Lehner talked about it a lot a couple of years ago when we had a long chat. Like, I think it's becoming increasingly important in the pro game as the pre-scouts and as this entire generation of shooters grows up knowing what an RVH is, understanding how to not just where to shoot on a butterfly, but how to open it up with certain blade angles and changes and things like that. Showing them different looks matters.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I think that I can even tell just watching NHL goalies, there's, well, I don't want to give too much. There's a certain NHL goalie that you and I know well and might spend some time in Kelowna that has really gotten into using a VH a lot more within the last couple of seasons. And I think for the most part, like when I watched him a lot when I was in Canada. But he seems to be like kind of getting into it because he was more of an RVH guy, and he'll use it a lot on his glove side now.
So now I got to do my homework and figure out, like, it's a pretty short list. So I think I got an idea, but like the fact that I just did Doobie's footage and cut clips of him, and I know that's not who you're talking about while you were in Canada, but he's also a guy that still, I remember doing drills with James Reimer, Devin, and Robbie Tallis when Rhymes was in Florida. Robbie Tallis came up to Kelowna and sharp angle drills, and Devin right into VH off the post. Rebounds are going into places where nobody's going to get them. It's still an effective tool above the goal line.
For sure. Yeah, I 100% agree. It's something actually, like, I remember when I got traded to Nashville, like that was one of the things, is like, why are you in the VH, like, in this situation? I was like, because it works. Like, it's actually great. And like, when we talked through it, Rooker was like, you know what? Like, I actually love it. Like, I love, like, your reasoning behind it. Like, I love, like, and he's like, the biggest thing to me is we have all these tools, right? And the way I play goal, like, it's very reactive. And like, I couldn't tell you, like, in the moment, I don't box myself in, if the guy's here, I'm in an RVH. If the guy's here, I'm in a VH. If he's out there and toes on top of the paint, if he's here, I'm heels on top of the paint. Like, first of all, that's too much brain power for me. Second of all, it's just not the way I can play the game. And for me to be successful, I have to read the game and just trust my instinct. And I think part of that is having a lot of tools in your toolbox to just be able to go with the flow of the game, and what feels right in the moment, you go with it. And if it's not the right play, you worry about it after, and you address it in video. And it's not really a huge problem until it becomes a pattern. That's the thing, right? And so, like, you know what? Like, the shooters are good, man. Like, they're trying to score goals. They're highly skilled. They got good shots. Like, you're going to give up some goals here and there, even if you made a good save selection. But at the end of the day, it's when it's a pattern, you're getting beat here a lot when you make a certain save selection. Like, maybe we need to tweak that a little bit. I think it's the pattern over, a period of a few games or, a few months, that's when you can really for a guy like me, that's when I really like, okay, this is something we gotta address. And other than that, it's just trying to add as many tools to the toolbox as you can, and then going out and being comfortable enough with those tools to be able to use them. And then you go out and you play the game and you react.
And still at the age 31, after 9 years in the league, still looking for more tools in the toolbox. Is that part of what you love about it? That it's that this constant evolution, that it never changes, and that there are always new ways to do things?
Well, for sure. It's like anything. And in order to have success over a long period of time, you're going to have to change. Because, I mean, the game's constantly changing as it is. Like, you know, you bring up Quickie, he's a great example. Like, he did change the game, like the reverse VH. That changed the game. Like, all of a sudden, shooters have to adapt to that. And then all of a sudden, we have to adapt to them learning how to beat that, right? So it's constant adaptation. It's just like anything in life, you know. You know, Tiger Woods was an awesome golfer, but what was he always doing? He was always changing his swing to be better. Like, at the end of the day, if you want to have a long, really successful career in just about anything, you're always going to have to be willing to adapt and change. And, you know, as I get older, there's things that I could do even 5 years ago that are a little bit harder to do now. Like, so like you have to kind of be able to constantly adapt.
Okay, so speaking of adapting, you had to do a lot of adapting, both in terms of geography and travel and teams, and you get put on waivers. We're in the just so the Kings can send you down and have you as an option as taxi squad. Still requires waivers. You get picked up by Edmonton. We saw the merry-go-round. You know, Aaron Dell, Eric Comrie, Anton Forsberg, everybody sort of moved one step around the musical chairs. You get that call, you start driving to Edmonton. What was that process like? What goes through your mind? You've been in pro hockey long enough, and then why end up driving from Los Angeles to Edmonton? A question I know you've answered already for others, but we haven't heard it here. Like, how'd you end up in the car to Edmonton as opposed to hopping a flight?
Yeah. So we'll start like when I got put on waivers. I get put on waivers the same day as actually Mark Alt, who he also lives in the Minnesota area, but we first met on our flight out here to Los Angeles. And like we kind of struck up a relationship right away. And, you know, we were both first time we've been in this organization. And so I was actually staying at Alti's apartment, and we were both on waivers, and we were kind of talking about it. And do you think you're going to get picked up? I don't know. I was looking at it, and, you know, Smitty had just kind of had his issue. And I was like, you know what, like there's a chance I'm going to Edmonton. Like, so I kind of, you know, after I did my research, once I was on waivers, I kind of had an inkling that it could happen. And then just getting the Packers played against the Rams the day I got picked up. So actually Darren Granger, the equipment manager here with the Kings, he could probably send a picture, but he took a picture of me. Like, I came in dressed to the nines with my Packers gear on. And all of a sudden, I take my Packers gear off, and, you know, about to get ready for the day. And I get the call from Blakey, and he was like, well, you got picked up by Edmonton. And Ken gives me a call, tells me I have to be up there Monday. And I was asking like if I wanted to fly out tomorrow. And I was like, you know what? Like, family's not here. Like, I can pack up pretty quick. I'll just drive it. And honestly, like, the thoughts behind driving were that I didn't have a spot really to leave my car in LA. Like, I just met Alti a couple weeks before, you know, I didn't know, you know, if there's a spot to really leave it and have it feel safe, or what it might cost to store it somewhere here. And the other things were just, you know, just with everything going on, not that I don't feel safe flying, because I did fly out here and ship my car here, but I just figured, you know, it's even less contact than flying, and I'm going to be in quarantine. I might as well be in quarantine for as little time as possible. And then I think there's just like a little bit of a comfort thing too, right? Like I got all my own stuff. Like I know exactly where it is. Like it's with me. I've got my own car, and just kind of a little bit of sense of normalcy going into a situation like that. I think all those things played a factor. And then the last one was that I've played with a few guys over my career from Edmonton, but Dan Carr, who I played with last year in Milwaukee, and before that, we were in the same class at Union. So we were at Union together for 3 years. No Carsey for a long time, and I just kind of knew that he and his wife Lizzie would, do whatever they could if something happened. And it was kind of funny because Lizzie ended up doing my laundry for me while I was up in Edmonton. So, but just great people, and just knowing that I had someone like that up there, where if I, had to go to wherever, Florida, on the drop of a dime, I could feel pretty safe just leaving my stuff with them and feeling safe about it.
Okay, so now you're on your way to Edmonton, but you had to make a pit stop.
Yeah. The pit stop. So the plan was I was going to stop once and then make the rest just do it in 2 days. So I was on the road at about noon. I got to like Ogden, Utah, stopped for the night, and then I kept driving, and it was probably around noon again. And I was somewhere in the mountains south of Helena. And my agent called that the Oilers put a claim in on Deller, who like I've played with for a few years in the San Jose system. And that if I hadn't crossed the border, to just stop until waivers go through tomorrow. So I was like, okay, like it's the way it's going. Like we'll do it. And so the next kind of town was Helena, and I was like I probably got into Helena just before 1:00, and so it was Sunday, so that who were the Browns playing? I think the Browns were playing the Chiefs. I'm not exactly sure.
I'm trying to pick the weeks. And I remember having this conversation with you at the time when it happened. I think you're right. That's about right. That lines up.
So I was like, you know what? Like I'll grab a couple beers and I'll, watch some football in the hotel. And I'll kind of have a football Sunday and FaceTime some buddies and whatever, and watch football. And so I grabbed a couple beers and at the little gas station, and it was right next to the hotel. And I go into the hotel, and it's right before 1:00, because I remember being like, okay, let's get this hotel quick so I can get the TV on for kickoff. And I'm one of like 2 cars in this parking lot. And I asked the guy at the front desk, hey, I was wondering if I could get a room. And he said, you can get a room, but you can't check in until 3. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. Like, this place is not full. Like, clearly not full. Like, I think
watch the football game.
Your car, my car, and somebody else's car are in the parking lot. And I was like, all right. And he was like, but yeah, I'll reserve one for you, and you can check in at 3. And I was like, well, what the heck am I gonna do for 2 hours in Helena, Montana? I can't go to a bar or restaurant to watch these games. And so I flicked on the radio in my car, and I kind of tailgated. I had a beer on my tailgate of my Jeep and listened to the game on the radio old school, and did that for the first half, and FaceTimed a couple of my buddies and just had a laugh about the situation, right? And then at 3:00 was able to check into the hotel and actually watch that game and the next game. And it was
Saints, yeah.
It was what it was, right? And then got to bed pretty early, and just ready for whatever happened the next day. And I just I'll never forget, I woke up, I talked to my kids and wife, and then still had a few hours to wait, like gassed up the car, was all ready to go. Had nothing to do.
Because you had to wait for them to figure. You had to wait to know whether they gotten Dell or not.
Yeah, I had to wait till 10 o'clock Mountain Time, so noon
Right.
Eastern, and so at like 9:50 or so, I like go back in the car, like turn it on. And the funny thing too was that morning it was snowing there, and like the rest of the drive, it was perfect on the way up, right? And I was like, okay, of course, like I have to stop, and now it's snowing. And then right at like 10 o'clock and like 15-20 seconds, I was just scrolling Twitter. I figured either I'd get a call from my agent or like I'd see something on Twitter, and I see Pierre LeBrun tweet Dell to New Jersey, and I just immediately went north. And like within like 10 minutes, the snow cleared up, and it was like clear sailing up to Edmonton. And yeah, then we were going, and got to the border. It took a little bit at the border to get my work permit and all that type of stuff, but was up in Edmonton that night.
Now, the only downside is you had to quarantine, and the Oilers were on their way out of town. So, how do you? And we saw you on Twitter tonight. I love the advice in front of the television. How do you stay in shape and try and stay game ready at all without the ability to go on the ice? Like, what were you doing to try and keep yourself at least some semblance of hockey form?
Yeah, at that point, like it's a lot of visualization, which I do across a normal season. But I think when it's kind of the only way to mimic being on the ice, like you have to put a little bit more focus into it. So that was a big thing, just going through different visualization routines, and kind of just every scenario like you might go through in a game. Pass outs and power plays and traffic and 2-on-1s, 3-on-2s, like behind the net stuff, just kind of like having that in your mind. And it doesn't even have to be full reactions, right? Just kind of like getting a flow and a connection, mind and body to it. So a lot of visualization. I actually didn't start doing like what the video on Twitter. I didn't start doing that until a couple days into my quarantine in Edmonton. But I just remember it hitting me like in Edmonton, like what else can you kind of do? Because there's not a ton going on for you. And I was like, you know what? My brother and I used to love like acting out what was happening in NHL games when we watched. And it wasn't even live NHL games. We had like an old VHS kind of like highlight video, and like I don't even know what year it was from, but it was like there was everything in there from like Red Army highlights to NHL All-Star Game highlights. It wasn't a Don Cherry's, but it was something similar. And that's what my brother and I always used to do. So like just kind of reflecting back on that, I was like, well, I'll watch this period of, I don't even remember what the game was. I think it was a Winnipeg game. I don't remember who Winnipeg was playing. But I just remember watching it. I kind of like set up a little mini net and just kind of, for one period, just kind of went through movements and made saves. And I was like, it's actually a pretty good way to kind of keep your mind into it at least a little bit as best as you can. And I was lucky enough too, where up in Edmonton, I didn't have to do the full 14-day Canadian quarantine because I was able to get into the Alberta Health Pilot Program. So when I drove across the border, I got tested right there. And then basically my drive up to Edmonton, I could only stop for gas and food at a drive-through. But I got that result back like probably 24 hours after I crossed the border. So really only the first day was it like full lockdown in my hotel room. And then after that first day, I could at least like kind of walk around, and like I could go pick up some Gatorades and waters at the 7-Eleven or whatever it may be. So it was just kind of like there were still restrictions on me. Like I couldn't go to to the Oilers facility and like couldn't like be around like, I think like 5 people or something like that. But there were a few restrictions on me still. And also the other positive was a couple days after. So I would get tested every other day for the NHL protocol. They would just come to my room to test me. And after like 1 or 2 of those tests coming back negative, I was able to work out in the hotel gym, which I was staying at the JW, and the gym at the JW there in Edmonton is like, it's legit. Like it's really nice. So that helped out a lot in terms of just being able to kind of stay on my stuff right away. And it, even now, like in those first 2 days, like I was able to do like a lot of body weight type stuff in my room. Adam's great with that. Like, so I've got a whole like drop box of stuff that I can do just body weight. And it's something that I've had to lean on obviously the past few weeks, but being able to get into the gym and actually like move some weight around and have access to a bike and stuff like that just really helped in terms of, I noticed it mostly like cardio type stuff. And it didn't feel like when I got on the ice, I was out of breath or anything like that. So that was nice. But yeah, it wasn't, the first 8-day quarantine I had here in LA was a little bit tougher just because you didn't have as much access to stuff like that. So it was almost a little bit easier with that pilot program to be afforded to get out a little bit. And I get it. Like, I understand full reasoning why it can't be, you test negative and you're just released out into the wild. But it was nice to have that kind of like, okay, he's negative. Like the risk is smaller than it would have been if we didn't know what this guy's coming in with. So at least I was able to have access to a few things like that. And then 6 days or 7 days after I crossed the border, I have another test with Alberta Health. And when that came back negative, then I was kind of fully cleared out of like the 14-day type protocol or quarantine that it would have been in Canada. So I was able to actually get into the arena and get on the ice and use the team facilities and stuff like that. So overall, like it's a long week, but it could have been a longer 2 weeks.
Okay. And so the guys were away, but they come back. And I mean, how many practices did you get in? How many, you've been on the ice with NHL stars, throughout training camps and past call-ups where maybe you didn't get into a game, but it's not like it's a foreign concept by any means, but right. It's also never been McDavid and Draisaitl. So I'm just curious what the first practice is like with, we all sort of see it from our couches and marvel at the speed on TV. And yet, I can't imagine what it's like in real life. Did you get a chance to get on the ice and get some practice and see that at full tilt?
Yeah, for sure. It was actually funny. So the first full practice I had with the team, I kind of had and I do it a fair amount where I'll peg 1 or 2 guys, and it'll kind of be like, hey, that guy's not scoring today. Just period, end of story. And as the season goes on, it could be you have a bet with a guy on certain days, or maybe that guy pissed you off the practice before, shooting one at your ear or something like that. So tomorrow he's not going to score. But McDavid was one that I was like, okay, that guy, doing everything I can for him not to score. And going out early, he shot on us early just for goalie drills. And it was me and Skinsey. And I was like, all right, well, we're starting off early. And I just
goalie drills and McDavid shooting. Wow.
I was good. I don't want to call McDavid out or anything, but I was 100%, through goalie drills and stuff. And actually that practice, they ended up running power plays, and he absolutely blew a one-timer past me on the power play. But I think that was the only goal in practice. And I was, pretty amped up about it. And then it was a practice where he didn't get to do his thing, right? His thing is he's moving at a high rate of speed, and he's got a quick release, And it wasn't really a practice that necessarily that there was a lot of that going on. But I remember the first warm up for a game that I dressed up for, like in the half moon, he's able to do what he wants to. And I mean, you watch him all the time, right? So like I know exactly what like his thing, and like I was like, okay, he does his thing. Okay, he's either like gonna go high cheese, he's gonna go over my pad blocker side, or he's gonna tuck it 5-hole. And like it happened so fast, he just tucked it 5-hole on me. I was like, that's why the guy's the best player in the world. You knew he had 3 things that he was gonna do, and he still got it on you.
Oh man, what did you get? I mean, you weren't there long. Did you get much of a chance to work with Schwartzy at all? Again, we talk about tools in the toolbox. Is there enough to pick up another tool in those few brief practices? Because he's also chasing. He's got Mike coming back. He's got Mikko. He's got Stuart Skinner. He's got a lot of things going on. I wasn't sure how much time.
He was juggling 5 goalies at once.
Right, Dylan Wells was there too. Those are long days for a goalie coach.
Yeah, so Schwartzy was great. He'd been in touch with me on my way up there, and we talked, and just super nice guy. And I, we developed a relationship pretty quick, and he was just kind of open and honest with everything going on. And I think that's one of the biggest things in goalie coaches, and the goalie and goalie coach kind of relationship is just that openness and honesty, and being able to kind of just establish that trust quickly. And that's something that I feel like Schwartzy was awesome at. And, we got out there and we got, as much work as we could in this small time frame I was there. And there were definitely a few little things that I think part of it was the first, day or two, like I hadn't been on the ice, and just really like getting back some of the fundamentals, some things that I know what it takes for me to be at my best, but also knowing it's not necessarily the thing that like I naturally gravitate to. So like
take some time,
like calming the game down instead of running a million miles an hour all the time. Like that's kind of one of the things. Like I play a more athletic style, and a lot of times like that has to get dialed down for me to actually have my most success. And when I'm just going out and, relying too much on instinct or just going like pure full out, sometimes that's like, okay, dial it in, like reel it back a touch. Like it doesn't have to be a ton. Like we want you to be able to get out and take away space, but like you don't have to get out to the top of the circle, that type of thing. So, just little things like that. And I think that's what Schwartzy and I focus on really mainly in the first few days. And then once I kind of like got back into it, we actually got to talk a lot about, different philosophies. Obviously the 2 guys that are there, Smitty and Koski are huge guys. Right. And so like, even just some of the warm-up drills, like, and just bread basketing things, like where they're in the puck's in the corner and they're in a reverse. And like, for me, that's completely uncomfortable because like, I'm not big enough necessarily to get my shoulder, like while I'm just like sitting in a reverse. Like I have to work to get my shoulder up to cut that angle out. Like I'd much rather just kind of sit there, and once you shoot, then I'll react to it. Right. Whereas it's more comfortable for those guys, just block it right off. So just being able to talk about little things and little differences, and even just the 5 goalies that were there. Obviously you're not on the ice with all 5 goalies at the same time, but Schwartzy gets to work with all 5 of those guys. And I think just being able to talk to a guy like that, who is seeing 5 different guys every day, it allows him to like keep his mind fresh on like all these different ways to play it. Like, Smitty's doing this, like Gross is doing this, but like Stewie's doing this. And I think like for me, like that, like we've talked about, like that's kind of the cool thing, is just being able to see what different guys are doing and what different guys are having success with, and seeing if I can meld a little bit of that into my own game.
Did you get a chance to meet, like, because in normal circumstances, you would have had a chance to meet him in Kelowna, but obviously with COVID, you obviously weren't in Kelowna this summer. I was just because you'd mentioned Adam and the workouts that he gave you, and obviously Smitty's working with him now too. So I wasn't sure if you had any history with Mike Smith heading into this, or if you'd met him through Adam at all.
No, I hadn't gotten to meet him yet. Adam had told me when I went up there that he had started to work with Smitty, and Smitty was one of the first guys I got to meet up there, just because he was back in Edmonton doing his rehab stuff, and just a great guy. He's another guy. You can see like how hard he works, but like just the competitive nature, right? Like even small things, like just wanting to play like ping pong all the time, like just like the competitive juices. And that's another thing that I take away. Like I'm a competitive person for sure, and it's definitely got me where I've been. But you can tell like that's something that like that's a big part of who Smitty is. Like he's a competitor, and it was just great to see. And he kind of like took me in right away. Like no need to. A guy that's been in the NHL as long as he has didn't need to kind of make sure everything was going good with me, but he did. So just great competitor and great human being. And I only got to spend a few weeks with him, but he's a grade A guy on my list for sure.
No, obviously it didn't last as long as you'd hoped. I knew you were excited about that opportunity. I think a lot of us were hoping you get an opportunity there. It didn't pan out. And you end up back on waivers when Smitty gets healthy, claimed by the Kings. There's a team that wanted you. Is there an element of going back to a team where this is an organization that saw value in you, wanted you to be a part of them, like signed you in the offseason pretty quick because they saw all those values and knew that you were ready? Like, is there some relief there? And then you got to walk me through the process. You got to share with our audience the process of getting home, because when you shared it with me the first time the other day, Troy, there were moments there where I was like, you could have died.
Yeah. So
scary trip, man.
We'll start with like the first, like, I think no matter what, like even I knew like when I was in LA, once Cal came back, like I was going to have to clear waivers most likely. Like I didn't think that I was going to be, on the roster or anything like that. But there's still even knowing that there's still a sense of disappointment. Like I said, we're all competitors, right? Like we all want to be in the NHL. Like that's, you could do it for as long as you want. You could have gotten cut as many times as I have. It's still, there's, it might be a little bit less of a sting and a little bit less of a shock, but as it's happened, but it's still, it still stings. Because like you said, like at the end of the day, you're fighting for an opportunity. You're fighting for a chance to play in the NHL. But I think part of what did lessen the blow was like, first of all, Kenny Holland had been completely honest with me the whole time. And he said, you might end up right back on waivers, when Smitty gets back. I don't know. We're going to have to see where the roster situation stands. Like we don't want to lose you. But just the way the rosters work this year, it might be the, the reality of it. And like I said, the first time we talked, like there's humanity in the game. No one wants anything bad to happen to anyone. And I think everyone understands the circumstances, and doesn't mean that someone's a bad person or they're not thinking about the humanity of the game. It's just, it is what it is. It's the situation that we live in right now. And, I think it did soften the blow, like going back to LA where, at least I had some familiarity, even if it wasn't, more than 3 weeks of being here. But like I said, like I had talked to Billy and Matt and people in the organization over the summer, and knew that I fit a role that they needed. So that definitely, it was a sense of comfortability. But at the same time, it was like, you felt like you had a shot to play a game or two in the NHL, and it doesn't look like it's going to happen. It's never going to feel good. But at the same time, it kind of fuels the fire to be like, you know what, like I know I'm good enough to play in the NHL, and it's just a matter of time. Like the breaks will bounce your way. Like if you keep at it and keep working hard. So that was kind of the attitude. But the other thing that was nice is that, Edmonton and my agent kind of had caught wind that LA would put a claim in on me, because otherwise, when I was on waivers, I would have had to fly with the team to Calgary the night before. And because I had a heads up, I was able to just stay in Edmonton and be able to just drive out instead of having to fly to Calgary, fly back to get my car, and then fly out. So they, like, at the end of the day, everyone involved in the situation, LA, the Oilers, my agent did everything they could to make a tough situation easier on me. And I think that at the end of the day, that does show the humanity in hockey, in what some people could view as, not thinking of the human side. I think everyone was very cognizant of the human side of it. It just, it's a tough break. At the end of the day, like if I really didn't want to, drive to Edmonton, like I could have flown, and I could have said, no, I'm not going. Like, I'm going to retire. Like, I could have done all those things. Like, those aren't the things I wanted to do. Right. Like, it's a conscious decision on my part too, to do those things. But, if we're getting,
might have been a little safer on the flight.
Exactly. And that's what we're getting to now. Like, there's, as much as I like driving and, I enjoy having all my stuff with me. Yeah, the first day of driving from Edmonton to LA started to make me rethink the decision a little bit. So I got on the road relatively early before it was official that LA had claimed me. That I was probably near Red Deer. I just knew I was going to have to go south from Edmonton, even if somebody else picked me up. And so I was like, it doesn't matter if I start driving. So I was around Red Deer when it came through that I was going to LA. So then the plan was, okay, just take the same route you got, that you were on the way up, just taking the opposite way. And so I started that. And then somewhere around Lethbridge, maybe just north of Lethbridge, it started snowing. It was so cold. It was such a fine snow, right? And it was just, I didn't think anything of it. I was just like, this is really like whipping around. It's so easy. Like, it's kind of blizzard conditions because it's windy and it's such a wispy snow.
Yeah, because it's minus freaking 30, man.
Yeah. Well,
it was
that
cold.
was the thing too. I got a chuckle out of it too. So when I was in Edmonton that morning, it says minus 15 on my car. And I was like, geez, I know my car changes like time zones automatically, but did my car just change to Celsius automatically when I was in Canada? Like, I was like, nope. I looked over, it was like, no, that's an F. That's minus 15 Fahrenheit. And I was just like, oh man, like, it's cold out there. I'm glad I'm in this car right now. And so I start driving, and it wasn't bad. Like, Edmonton, Red Deer, even through Calgary, like, there wasn't any snow. And then as I got a little bit further south, like, I started to hit that storm, but didn't think too much of it. And it was coming down heavier and heavier. The roads themselves were not bad, right? Like, nothing was sticking to the roads, just because it got just whisked away by the wind.
It's too dry to stick. Yeah.
And so I was whipping along pretty good. And then when I got south of Lethbridge, like, the road started to get a little bit worse. And I was a few miles from the border there in Coots, and all of a sudden, like, I get this warning light, and it's like electronic throttle, needs servicing. And like, when I hit the gas, like, nothing came, and it was like almost like I would break. And I was like, what is going on? Like, I'm in the middle of nowhere. Like, this isn't good. And like, I kind of had realized, like, if I really let it get slowed down, like, I can speed up again, but like very slowly. But like, controlling speed was an issue. Like, if I had to speed up quickly or like go uphill, like, that was that was a huge issue. So I get to the border, hand my passport over to the border agent. As an American, really easy to get in back into the States. A few questions here or there. Okay, be on your way. And I said to him, I was like, hey, I just got this warning light and something's going on with my accelerator. Is there anywhere close that I can get this checked out? He's like, well, the nearest guy is 35 miles away and he's closed on the weekends. And I was like, great. So it's Saturday. And I was like, he's like, other than that, you're going to have to drive 110 miles to Great Falls. And I was like, oh man, like it's kind of like full on blizzard conditions now. And I was like, what am I going to do? Maggie starts calling like anywhere she can find in between like the border and Great Falls and trying to figure it out. She ended up talking to the people at Jeep in Great Falls. And I had been talking to my parents, and actually my dad's cousin works in the service department for Jeep, where I actually bought my Grand Cherokee. So I was able to talk to Derek for a bit, and he kind of said it could be a couple of things. Your throttle might be freezing up because of how cold it is and the amount of snow you're going through. And he's like, in which case, don't stop, because if you're nowhere close to civilization, like you need to get as close to civilization as you can to get towed. And if you turn off the car, like the throttle might just be dead then because it's too cold. And I was like, okay. And he's like, the other thing is it could be an issue with the air filter having too much snow in it, in which case you could stop and you could clear it out a bit. But don't do that, because if it ends up being your throttle, like you could be, SOL wherever you are. And so
in the middle of nowhere with no temperature.
Middle of nowhere, kind of in a blizzard. And so like I'm trying to go up hills, and like it's a blizzard-ish conditions, and I'm going so slow that an 18-wheeler passes me in the lane that it's kind of like one lane is pretty clear and one lane is very snowy. I'm going so slow that an 18-wheeler decided to pass me in the snowy lane. And I was like, well, that's not a good sign. And when all that snow hit me, like my engine like puttered. And I was like, that was a hint to me. I was like, you know what? It probably is the air filter, because like it was noticeable when that snow hit that side of my car. All of a sudden, like I had no power. And so I was like going up that hill, and I could only get to, 25 miles an hour or so. And so I stopped the next place I could. And it was just like this little podunk motel and a gas station. That was it. And pull in the gas station. I keep my car running to hopefully keep the throttle and engine as warm as possible. And I checked the air filter, and of course, like it's loaded with snow. And even just below the air filter, like where the air intake is, like it's a pancake of snow in there. So I clear that out as best as I can. I kind of shake it out as best I can. I actually went into the bathroom, and I took the air filter and I just went into the hand dryer and just started letting it like just blow all the snow and crap out of the air filter.
See, we can laugh at this because you're alive, because we're talking to you today, so we know this, so we can chuckle now. But man, I would have been flipping out.
I was like, I mean, at this point, like at least I was pretty like before this point, I was pretty scared about like the situation, but at least like I was in touch with my family, so they knew like what was going on. Plus, the Jeep in Great Falls knew what was going on, and I had made it to a spot where I'm assuming at least they had a landline at that gas station, so that I could have called somebody if I really needed to. But so yeah, I clear out the filter and the air intake as best I can. There's still some snow in there, and when I start it up again, like it's working better. It's still not at 100%, but it's definitely working better than it was. And I'm able to get the rest of the way to Great Falls. And, they got me right in. Those guys were incredible at that dealership, because they got me right in, and they blew out my whole intake system. They got me a new filter. They blew out the old filter and dried it out so that I had a backup filter in case it happened again. and just talking to him, like his name is Bobby at Great Falls Chrysler Jeep Dodge. He was just kind of like, hey, is there any chance like are you working on a tight schedule, or can you kind of stop for the night? And I was like, on a kind of tight schedule. I need to get down there. Like, it would make my day tomorrow really, really long if I had to stop in Great Falls. But I was like, when's the snow supposed to stop? And he was like, well, probably around noon tomorrow. And I was like, that's a little bit too long. And I played weatherman and kind of with Maggie, and we kind of determined somewhere around Butte that I should be out of the snow, and that was a few hours away. And I was working with a new air. I just got renewed. A new filter, new air intake, all cleared out. And I was like, I'll risk it and try to get past Butte and see where we're at. And then because between Helena and Butte is pretty mountainy, so I was pretty nervous for a while there. And I was talking on the phone with Maggie, and like the snow was coming down pretty heavy, and I was like, it's pretty hard driving right now, but I got through it, got down past Butte, probably about half an hour past Butte, like the snow kind of cleared up. And then I checked the air filter again. That's when I cut my finger a little bit, but nothing too bad, but shows how handy I am. And then and got a little bit, so we did that, and then got to Idaho Falls, smooth sailing. The air filter was fine, and stopped in Idaho Falls for the night, and then woke up early the next morning, was on the road, and made it to LA in time for the third, well, not the whole third quarter, but a good amount of the third quarter of the Super Bowl. It was funny too, because I drove through through Las Vegas as the Kings were playing the Knights at T-Mobile. So I literally drove right past the arena as the boys were playing.
Couple quick honks.
Yeah.
Honking a wave.
Anybody need a ride?
Oh, we shouldn't actually make jokes, because John Gibson just had to drive to Vegas to join the team on a road trip because he missed the team flight after taking stitches. So you could end up just running a car service for professional hockey players between LA and Vegas.
If there's ever another big virus outbreak, and we need a guy to quarantine just to drive people around, I can be that guy.
You've got it mastered. Well, the good news is you made it home safe and sound. You're now stopping pucks through visualization with the TV on in front of you in Los Angeles for everyone on Twitter to enjoy. And best of all, you've got Maggie and the kids, Beckett and Claire, coming down to meet you in the next couple of days. So, that would have been tough in Canada, obviously, with the clearances and everything. So there's a happy ending here. But what an adventure, man. Like, holy crap. Like, I know pro hockey's an adventure. We talked to Mike McKenna, obviously, and he went through one last year with bouncing around. But do you get any different perspective out of the last month, the last 3 weeks, what it's been like? Does it change your mindset, or does it just reinforce that drive?
Yeah, if anything, it reinforces it. It's one of those things. I was talking to Daphne Aronson, who's like the mental skills coach here in LA. And I was like, it's funny, as more stuff has happened, it's almost just easier to get through. And I'm not saying the situation in and of itself is easy, but it's just kind of all right, just add another thing to the list. We'll get over this one too. It's you kind of laugh at it and you just move on and you cross that bridge, and it's okay, what else do you got to throw at me? I'll handle it, and I'll prove myself. I can get through this one too. And it's the hardest, honestly, it's become easier as I've gone through it, and just talking to Maggie, and that's kind of been having a support system I have, where I can call Maggie and I can call my folks, I can call my brother any time of the day or night, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what I'm going through, doesn't matter what they're going through. I know someone is going to be there for me. That makes things a lot easier too. When I was going through that in Montana, I literally had talked to Maggie and my parents, and like they were doing everything they could to figure out how to get me out of the situation that I found myself in. Just knowing you have backup like that, it's just okay. All right, what else does the world have to throw at me? Because like me and my team, we're gonna get through it. It becomes fun, like almost like as I don't want to say sadistic, but almost as sadistic as it sounds. It's just like it's fun to just like get through the adventure, get through the challenge, right? And just be like, okay, I'm prepared for anything the world throws at me, and we got this. And it's been a crazy few days, but like or crazy few weeks, but there's just so much worse stuff that happens to other people that like if you really like take it back and rewind it, and if this is all I have to get over, like at the end of the day, like that's not that big of a deal. Because obviously in the times we live in right now, there's people losing their lives and people losing loved ones, and not to say that doesn't happen normally, like it's not that big of a deal to go through what I've gone through when you compare it to the situations other people have to deal with. And any situation I find myself in, I know that the people around me will help me get out of it. Do we hope there's one less bridge to cross? Of course, but we'll cross any bridges that you put in our way, and hopefully that leads to another shot in the NHL someday.
That's great perspective, Troy. And I guess the other part of that perspective is a bad bounce off a defenseman's ass that on a puck you didn't see is probably going to feel like just not that big a deal anymore compared to, again, perspective, right?
That's true. It's all perspective, man. Like, it's funny, like, and I've noticed that over the last few years of my career. I think it's one of the things that has helped me had success is I think a lot of the really bad year I had, like, it was just taking a lot of the bad things that happened at the rink with you. And then that kind of manifests and you grip your stick too tight, that type of thing. Whereas, if you learn to table those type of things and just go about your business and control what you control. And, when you're not at the rink, being able to just enjoy your family, that helps to put things a lot put you in the right frame of mind and really be able to enjoy the fact that at the end of the day, like I play a game for a living. Like when you put it that way, like how stupid does that sound? Like I get to play a game and be able to support my family doing that. And like how much luckier can you be? It doesn't matter like the other obstacles that go into it.
Yeah, it's I mean, like I said, well said, great perspective. And thank you for taking all this time to share it with us. Cause like there's going to be a lot of people that will find perspective in that as well, Troy, and that you were able to approach it that way. And also the other thing is I think it's important, to everyone who's listening, I'll get on a little soapbox here. We all want our hockey and our entertainment and our sports. And you're right. You get to play a game for a living, but you've been away from your family. You're going to see them tomorrow night. You've been away from them for almost 2 months now. There's a sacrifice here that professional hockey players are making so that the rest of us can watch hockey. And then for guys like me that work in the game can work and have a job. And so, as much as you're right, you get to play a game for a living. I think it's important that those of us who rely on that game for whether it's for income or entertainment or a relief from everything else that's going on in the world, say thank you for the sacrifices that you guys make to have the show go on.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of when I hear what you speak of, because I mean, at the end of the day, without the support of the fans and stuff like that, like I don't have a job either. So what I think, honestly, like it's a mutual respect thing, and I don't know, you look at the world today, and it's different in Canada, obviously, but you look at what has gone on in the United States over the past year, and and really over a year. But it's the mutual respect and the respect for your neighbor that it really comes down to. And realizing that what I think is a big deal could be a big deal to me. And if it's not a big deal to you, that's okay. But if it's a big deal to me, like, and you consider yourself a good person and a good neighbor, like, you need to be there to support, and if not, just respect that person's wishes or ideas. And at the end of the day, if there's more respect in the world, more understanding in the world, the better world we live in.
Well, much respect from us. Thanks for spending the time, and enjoy the family. I know, like I said, I know it's been a while since you've got a chance to see Beckett and Claire, and I know how much you're looking forward to it. So thank you so much. And Maggie, enjoy that. Have a great little family reunion, and we can't wait to see you playing hockey again once you're out of that quarantine.
Sounds good. Thanks, Woody.
You ever have a car breakdown in the middle of nowhere?
You know what? I was trying to remember. I don't think I have. I think I should knock wood as I say that, especially when you think about your younger years when you had cars that were a little less reliable than now that we're old and adults and we buy things like minivans to haul people around.
Or you'd have thought, no, I'm never going to run out of gas. And then you do.
Yeah. You know what? As a kid, I had a diesel and they scared you so much about what would happen if you ran out of gas in a diesel. I used to have a turbo diesel Volkswagen Rabbit 1984 with European bumpers and a little air dam. And it was sweet. Thing blew giant plumes of black smoke out the back when you hit the gas. Like, I apologize. Sweet. I killed a good chunk of our environment in my youth, but they scared you. Don't run out of gas because you'd actually have to, I guess they used to scare you like you'd actually have to have a mechanic prime certain parts with the diesel again if you ran it dry. So I never took that chance. And diesel, right? Only certain stations had it. So you were like you were pre-planning your whole freaking week around making sure you had enough gas in that thing. And of course, as a kid and as a high school student and going into college with that thing, you only had sometimes $10, $12 to put. You couldn't fill it every time. Nobody could do that, right? So my whole week was based on not running out of gas. So none of those moments. But man, as Troy's telling that story, the first time he told me that story, I was scared for him in moments. I'm like, okay, I'm talking to you, so you're alive, but like that could have been a near-death experience, buddy. That's a little freaky.
Those moments where he's probably thinking, "What am I doing here? Like, how did I get here?" Chasing the dream, of course, but also, there has to be that moment where he's like, really? What?
Well, I love that and we just heard him come back to it, but I love it. Instead of what am I doing here and it's how am I getting through this?
Yeah.
And it was his support team that delivered it. Now there's a lot of comparisons between all the people that he had stepping up, guiding him through this blizzard, this whiteout conditions with a car that was behaving scarily bad and the potential for being stranded. Those same people have helped guide him to this point in his career. And, I've talked to some goalie coaches that have watched him over the past couple of years. There's a lot of people that really do believe he's ready for this opportunity. And if he gets it in the NHL, he's going to make the most of it at 31. And I just, you just got to have faith that he's going to get that. I thought it would be in Edmonton, but it's coming. And all the people behind him and all the work he's done, I just have this really deep belief that he's ready for it, and he's going to show a lot of people that he is.
We'll keep everybody updated on Troy's journey. Also want to remind everybody about this Sunday and the Sensorino webinar.
Yeah. Check out all our in-goal social media channels. Keep an eye out for an email. If you're a subscriber to our free weekly newsletter, we'll have a special email coming out to announce it. It's going to be Sunday. I don't have a time pinned down. Like I said, we got an NHL practice schedule we're dealing with here, and got to make sure that we give enough time for our special guest to sort of get off the ice, get back to his hotel room, and be set up for this. We got to give him enough of a window, so the time's a little to be determined, but we'll have that out and make that public in the next day or so. So you don't want to miss this one. If you've ever thought about it, if you just want to learn more about it, if you've just got questions about it, or if you just want to hear what an NHL goaltender, his experiences, because this guy's been in quarantine a few times this year, so he's used Sensorino to get through it. What his experiences are like as a goalie in quarantine with and without Sensorino. Make sure you tune into the webinar, In Goal in person. And we're working on bringing a few of them back. A few more of these. We're working on trying to find our spots in these crazy busy NHL schedules where we can have some NHL goalie coaches join us. The plan is hopefully once a month, but much like this, plans are hard to pin down in such a crazy world, but we're working on it.
Yeah, just tell the NHL schedule maker all about plans being moved around. They know all about that right now, and they're doing their best. We are enjoying this wonderful world of COVID the best that we can, embracing all the adjustments that we have to make, and trying to actually use it to your advantage when the guys are in quarantine or guys are in hotel rooms. Maybe we can catch up with them a little bit more. Thanks to Sense Arena for the feature interview with Troy Grosenick, as well as The Hockey Shop, thehockeyshop.com, source for sports Surrey, for the presenting sponsor of In Goal Radio, the podcast. David Hutchison will be back with us next week off his assignment. Join us on Sunday for the Sense Arena webinar, and we will chat with you next week on In Goal Radio, the podcast.